Hello and welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. This is the final episode of Season 7, which is crazy, and Katy has a really awesome guest speaker that she got to interview all by herself, so I'm just here to introduce the episode and then turn it over to Katy. Enjoy!
This is like the second week in a row. Oh my gosh, this is the second week in a row that I've had to do an intro by myself without Laura. Which seems weird, but Laura, I have a guest with me here physically, and Laura, why didn't I invite Laura? Oh well, she misses out. So today we're going to be talking about all things Texas. Well, I mean, not all things. We could talk about all things Texas. That would make an amazing episode. But I have with me Jeff Seevers, and you are what's your position title?
Well, I guess technically I'm listed as a hydrologic technician.
There you go. At an undisclosed government agency, which makes it sound like you work for the CIA. It's not the CIA, but an undisclosed. You know how government people are, or government agencies are. How you're not allowed to. Nobody's allowed to talk except for like that one designated person, and you guys can't. Nobody else can say anything at all, apparently.
No, yeah, you can't get clearance to fly through the airwaves like that.
So you're not an expert, but you are a professional, and that's what we're going to be talking about today in your work with zebra mussels here within Texas, because they are a huge deal, and I feel like in Texas they're doing a pretty good job with talking to people about it, but I still don't think anybody really knows what they are. So your background, you graduated with your undergrad from American University in environmental science. You were in the Marines before that, though.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said before, you work at an undisclosed government agency, and you're working towards your master's for conservation biology right now. But it's fine.
You just start. Both of them in there, huh?
No, I mean, I could. I just have to make really tiny windows. Okay, so I left off that you're working towards your master's in conservation biology, and then besides zebra mussels, you do all kinds of different stuff, though.
It's a pretty broad spectrum, mostly related to just water research.
Okay. Well, I mean, hence the hydrological technician part of your title. All right, so let's just run through like a typical day. What is a typical, which I know completely drastically changes day to day.
It does. It's quite atypical, I would say. I can be anywhere from knee deep in a stream or a creek, like verifying it's actually flowing, all the way to, on a boat looking for zebra mussels, or sitting back in the office under a microscope and counting those little suckers.
Just zebra mussels. All about zebra mussels.
Quite a bit, yes. We've also done a little bit of cyanobacteria research with using satellites to kind of build a model to predict like harmful algal blooms. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty cool, but still kind of in the works.
Yeah, neat. So, I mean, I'm sure whenever you were a kid, you didn't just like dream about zebra mussels, right?
There may have been a dream in there. Yeah.
Did you? Just as a kid walking around, you'd be the dorkiest kid walking around. I want to work with zebra mussels. I mean, dorky as in like a good way, but.
Oh, yes. No, if it would have been in a stream in Texas like 2 decades ago, I probably would have been trying to play with it. So, yeah.
But they weren't. We'll get into that here in a minute. But how did you end up then getting into doing all of this then?
Kind of lucked into it a little bit.
I think you're the first person that's ever been like, I lucked into it, whenever we're all like, we're poor and we're still here. But you, so optimistic, Jeff.
It was quite serendipitous. I happened to move to an office that I absolutely hated. Mm-hmm. And then in the meantime, I met somebody through work that just happened to need someone who knows how to operate and maintain boats. And I've been on boats.
So that's how you got it, because they're like, or are they just like, who can steer a boat? And you're like, I mean, I can. Or was it a little more involved than that?
A little more involved with that.
Because I can do that. Like, I'm sure I could fudge my way through that. Have I driven a boat? No. Could I make it up? Totally could make it up.
But then you got to put the water to the hull and actually make it go forward.
I'm sure I could figure it out.
I bet you could. But I ended up lucking into this we actually got into a big discussion on invasive species in Texas, and little did I know this person was knee deep into zebra mussel research, and that's
No pun intended.
Oh, yeah, literally in this case. And he was just like, all right, I need you on my team. So
no dreaming about zebra mussels when you grow up, but
I mean,
did you want to go into environmental something whenever you got over? Because I mean, you took
absolutely.
a pit stop in the Marines.
Yeah, that was
not to be confused with like the Marine of water, but like the military Marines.
Well, yes, but the water aspect was a motivating factor for the Marines.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to pay me to go camp and play in the water? Where do I sign up for that?
Yeah. Oh, cool. So you ready to talk just about, I know how much you love zebra mussels.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I mean, I'm showing the gauge over here on my fingers for everybody out there in radio.
And nobody else can see. I can see. It's 4 inches. That's how much he loves zebra mussels. So, what is a zebra mussel for people who don't know what it is?
Yeah, so they're kind of an odd pyramidal shaped type thing. They have byssal threads on their belly, which they extend out to when they're younger. They can use that to move in the current. And also when they get older, they can use that to attach to substrates.
Oh, cool. Okay. And we'll be posting pictures. So earlier, Jeff and I went out to the lake to one of their spots at his undisclosed. I have an eyelash in my eye. Where we went out to one of the spots where Jeff counts. Or what do you do whenever you go out to one of these spots?
Yeah, so we've got several monitoring locations around, I guess, the regional area. And it includes Texas, Oklahoma area. And what we'll do is we go out to these monitoring sites. We'll take a plankton tow net and we'll collect samples.
Wait, pause. A what? A plankton what?
Tow net?
Okay. Okay, but TOW.
Yeah,
Continue.
not TOE.
I was like, sorry. I got hung up on toe. I was like, how tiny of a net are these plankton? Like, it was a plankton tow net.
We got to catch them by their toes.
Continue. Plankton tow net. TOW. You're towing plankton. Move on.
Yep. So we end up collecting these concentrated samples to look at their larval form, which is called a veliger. And that's able to give us like density counts for population estimates.
Okay.
And we also set out what's called a passive sampler. And it's basically some really sturdy like cardboard that withstands water pretty well.
Okay, because I was like, I don't know if I would want cardboard around water, but
trust me, I think it's really called mica board.
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's bought at Home Depot.
Yeah,
I mean, it's super scientific.
Yeah.
But we calculate the area in square inches on the square centimeters because it's science here, right? So square centimeters, we have the area, and then we look at the settlement of adults to a hard substrate in this area. And from that, we can actually interpolate these population densities throughout lakes and show like a population flux over time and over space, like a spatial distribution.
Yeah, because we were pulling it off of a buoy is what we were looking at.
We got to hide them.
Yeah, right. No, I can't blame you. So what is the big deal that you guys are looking at a population? Because I mean, scientists as a whole, whether it's, for your undisclosed government agency or ones that are similar, you're always doing like census counts and things like that. But why in particular is studying zebra mussels and understanding zebra mussels? Why is that such a big deal?
Yeah, so I guess it's a twofold for zebra mussels, whereas other invasive species such as an Asian clam we've had for decades here, but they don't attach to hard substrates. They just go bury themselves in the mud and love life. Whereas a zebra mussel attaches to hard substrates, and that can be anything from rocks to your native mussels and clams to water intake pipes for public drinking water.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the concern is at. It's also an ecological concern because they compete for food with everything else. And
because they came from Asia, right? You said?
Yeah, I guess Southeast Asia.
Yeah. How did they get? I mean, I'm assuming just like on boats because they were stuck. Either boats. Do we have any guesstimate of how they got here, or I guess when maybe?
Yes, it's kind of narrowed down to somewhere around the 80s, and it came in on big shipping containers in like ballast water is what they're probably using for the mode of transportation. And yeah, it came into the Great Lakes and totally changed that ecosystem up there. So from there, it's actually, kind of moved and spread through boat traffic and not, cleaning and drying your boats out. Where like here in Texas, they have this very big, and they call it clean, drain, dry. Mm-hmm. And the dry part is probably the most important because like zebra mussels can live out of like in a moist environment, not in water for quite a few days.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
So if you don't get it dry, you could still be transporting them. And recently, the Texas Parks and Wildlife has actually hinted at wanting to find out if they can go through like a bird's digestive system and be moved from lake to lake.
Poor bird.
Yeah.
This is so hard. No nerd. Poor birds. Continue. I'm immediately feeling for the bird. Continue.
Yeah, no worries. But
I mean, if they're tiny, of course, it's
if they're in their larval form, they wouldn't even know they have them in them. But
which I guess I never thought about that because the whole push with zebra mussels was so much so around somebody hangs out in one lake for a day or whatever, it gets stuck, and then they go to another lake, and it just sort of like bunny hopped from one thing to another throughout the U.S. But I never really thought about like in an animal moving,
And the I guess historical thoughts were it was anthropogenic, like transportation.
Yeah.
And we were just moving them around. Yeah. Whereas, now they're thinking, hey, we're getting them in lakes that we probably shouldn't be right now. Why?
Yeah.
For example,
so what
there's
would make
no boats allowed here.
Okay, because I was going to say, what would make it like hey, we shouldn't have this, is no boats.
Now, it could have been somebody coming by and just, scooped up a bucket of water with some minnows here, and now they went over to this lake to fish and just dumped their water out when they were done.
Yeah, because especially if it is a larval form, you're not going to really...
No, you wouldn't even know.
You wouldn't even know.
Yeah. Have no idea.
So it's not like you have to look. So the adults, how big? I mean, they're small, but how big? I mean,
they can range from anywhere it's like just barely visible, and you could almost mistake them for like a large grain of sand.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous because you would have no freaking idea.
Oh no! Yeah.
That's you'd have no idea that I'm a like an invasive species smuggler, and you have no clue. Because it just stuck to everything, and it's so tiny.
Oh, yeah. And, that's just it. Like, they're so elusive when they're that small that, I mean, you'll never know.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest I've ever seen one is somewhere around, I'd say, a solid 2 inches.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they
because I always thought that they get bigger. The ones that we saw today, because we went out to the lake, like I said, on the spot that you guys look at, paddle boarding and stuff. And so we went out to look at them, and they were small.
That's, I'd say, about average.
Okay, so those ones, I mean, and we'll post pictures, too, for you guys. If you guys, we'll put them up on Twitter and Instagram so you guys can see them. But, because I did take some pictures of whenever we were out. And so that, I mean, they were maybe, quarter inch? I mean, they were tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, considering.
I'd say most of them that were on that kind of ball there was a centimeter, 2 centimeters at the most.
Yeah, they were tiny.
So, maybe like less than an inch.
And you pointed out too, what was interesting was that it wasn't just a clump. So whenever we pulled it up, there's a string from the bottom of the buoy, and then there were the weights on the bottom, and then that formed. Was that whole ball? Was that just them, or is there something on there?
No, it was. What happens is that cordage will like fray.
Oh, okay.
And they just wrap around each individual strand.
Interesting.
And
okay.
then they'll start growing on each other. So there's probably a lot of dead ones that didn't release, and then they just grew on top of that. It just...
Yeah, because you said they were like, you could tell there were like tiny ones and then bigger ones, and they just kept piling on. Is that typical? Like, do they kind of always clump together like that?
Yes, they can get very dense and grow on top of themselves. When I was doing work in Kansas, actually, there was, like, they didn't think that they would live in the stream below the dam, and I would find them caked on rocks, like 3 inches thick. Of nothing but zebra mussels growing on zebra mussels.
Jeez.
So it's quite interesting how they will just choke out something.
Yeah, what do you think is the reasoning, I mean, to keep piling on like that? Is it just because they're like, hey, these guys have lived long enough, this looks like a good spot, and they just grow there too? Yeah,
I guess it's any hard substrate is perfectly game, and they don't care about their grandparents, you know?
Yeah,
they're
now dead grandparents just growing. That's so morbid, too.
It's like, make way for the new generation.
Yeah, jeez. That's how millennials should get rid of boomers. No, totally kidding. Totally kidding. But no, yeah, that's interesting then. Huh.
Yep, and that's where the ecological concern comes in, is because they will attach to hard shell, which you've got your native, like clams and mussels, and they'll be literally carrying around zebra mussels on top of them, and it'll get so bad to the point where they'll smother them.
Yeah.
And how can you compete with that?
Yeah. So how long, and this is kind of a weird question. I mean, it's me, so it's going to always be a weird question, but how long does it take for one to, like, attach to something? Is it, like, to, like, really attach to it?
Oh, not long at all.
Okay.
Yeah, once they can... I mean, don't think of it as like fingers where they're so dexterous with their abyssal threads, but they can literally, I know that they will attach to like the insides of pipes that have flowing water moving through them. And it's just the tiniest little, like maybe eddy that lets them circulate back around, and they can grab and hook it and then just hold it, and maybe seconds is all it takes for them to kind of like get that hold, and then they just contract them and start really working their...
This is my home now. Like, as soon as they get a spot, they're like, I am here. Like, do they move? Or, like, I mean, is that true? Like, once they find a spot, do they, unless they have to move, do they just kind of chill there as long as they have what they need?
They kind of have, like, they'll spend about a month in like their larval phase. And they're totally planktonic. They can move around through the water column and whatnot to where they're looking for their food sources as well when they're in the larval form. But as soon as they start to go what we would call umbonal, where they go from kind of like, think of an uppercase D. They look like that when they're a larval form. And then when they go umbonal, they'll extend that bottom part of the D out to another bend.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's where they start getting more of a pyramidal type shape.
Yeah.
And once they start going that direction, they're going to start settling out, but they can still kind of like settle down and go, man, I don't like this spot.
And move.
And then pick up and move and kind of drift a little bit. But they will get bigger to the point where they just fall out of the water column.
So do you guys, I mean, because obviously you can't track them because they're so tiny.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, right. Just put the teeny tiniest GPS tracker, because it would like hardly ever move. Because we have like, you know, great white sharks that if they track would be cool, and it'd just be like beep 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 beep, like the tiniest movement ever. It'd be kind of cute. I would have to name it then at that point if it was
of course
tiny little tracker on it. But so let's say like, okay, so then you do, what did you say, Texas, Oklahoma area for the most part.
Yep, for the most part.
So, like, do you see certain areas that are worse than others? And what are their contributing factors for how bad? Is it like the higher the human population, or? Good
question. I can say for certain that we don't have a rhyme or reason right now.
Or they don't have a rhyme or reason.
Indeed. They kind of pick and choose where they want to be. Some lakes around here, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like how is this not infested? And it's not. And then you'll have, you know, upstream lakes that do have, and then downstream lakes that don't.
What the heck? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've got some hypothesis
On what's going on.
but nothing, concrete. But yeah, so like in the Texas-Oklahoma region, they were first introduced probably through some sailboat that came from the Great Lakes area to Lake Texoma.
Okay.
And that was about maybe a little bit more than a decade ago.
So, so fairly recently. Considering a decade ago, that's not very long at all. Not
really. And considering that, back in, I think it was the 80s for the Great Lakes. So that's...
Well, considering they're like everywhere in Texas now. Like
it's tough, yeah.
Yeah. So, a decade and they're just like, have taken over. That's insane.
Yep. Lakes, it seems like every year, Texas Parks and Wildlife puts out a list of lakes that are like suspect or infested.
Suspect lakes.
Yeah.
Continue. Just makes it sound...
I can elaborate on that one. But yeah, so they put out a list and that's publicly available. So you can go out there and search it. I don't know the website off the top of my head or I would drop that. But, it just seems like every year. The most recent one, I guess, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area has been Grapevine Lake. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting how it didn't take long at all for this lake to fall. So, yeah, and it actually held out as long as it did.
Yeah.
Because you had Texoma and then, like, Ray Roberts.
Yeah.
That, went pretty quickly with each other. And then, like, Grapevine being right in the middle of
everything.
Everything. And it's such a popular lake for boating.
Is. Yeah.
That you would have figured, boy, that's just the next one. But no, it held out for years.
And for those of you that don't know, in Texas here, we're not everybody thinks that Texas is like tumbleweeds blowing. Like, it's not that bad, but it's still all of our lakes, but Caddo Lake are for the most part man-made. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because we have to have water here to drink and everything. And so the lakes that we have are very strategically placed. That's a whole other conversation, but they are very strategically placed. But they're also like high use. People here love the lakes, going out and using the lakes.
It gets too hot in the summer to not be.
No, not be on the water. Yeah, when it's 120 degrees outside and we're all dying, we just need some water. Interesting. Let me think of what else I have. I know I have tons of questions.
No, sure. So I guess as far as like lake recreation goes, there is definitely two different opinions about zebra mussels. Mm-hmm. And the more work I do, the more I see a dividing line. And it comes into play
among scientists or among just...
Nope, just among the public.
Okay.
And you've got the scientists and, kind of the nature conservationist types that are like, oh, the ecosystem. The natural habitat. And then you've got, your recreation side of it that sees what the zebra mussels do as far as, well, the lake got a lot clearer. What's happening? Mm-hmm. Or, well, okay, so there's that. And then there's also like the fisheries and like the bass fishermen and stuff like that. Also like the clearer water because they can see into it farther and it's easier to do fishing, which is weird because these zebra mussels compete for the base of the food chain, and that trickles up to affecting your shad populations, which is a forage fish, which then goes to your primaries, which are like your largemouth bass. Mm-hmm. And they don't see it as such a direct, like, causal effect. Yeah. So they think the water's getting clear.
Because it's, 3 or 4 steps away from what they're concerned about, which is
and
fishing.
Then when the water gets clear, then the vegetation's able to grow better, which provides better habitat for the largemouth bass, which then makes their population boom. But once they get to the point where the food chain's starting to collapse below them, and that's going to neck their numbers down.
Yeah, because I think, too, and that's everywhere you go, where the misconception is that clear water means clean water. Yes. Or clean means, healthy. No, that's not...
So opposite that.
Yeah, not the point at all. So interesting.
Yep, and on the recreation side of that, like you're saying, is you've got your water gets clear, it gets cleaner, people don't see the pea green water.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like soup anymore. So they're like, oh, let's go to this lake because it's a
Clear,
better
yeah.
lake to go recreate in.
Yeah.
So that brings money in.
Yeah.
And I have literally been at a boat ramp and a guy told me that he ought to shoot me for trying to do any kind of conservation work.
You're just out there counting zebra mussels, minding your own business.
Exactly.
And just run into this guy who's like, I need to shoot you. And you're like,
well, it's Texas. So
it is. To be fair, it is Texas. But still, out of all people, like, you know, pro-environment biologists that's just like out there just doing your job.
Yeah.
Here comes Grandpa Texan over there all mad.
But he does not. He was like, no, I don't want y'all to take them out because it makes my water clear and I've been getting more people in renting out my cabins. I was like, well, sorry, we don't actually do that. We're just here to like count them, basically.
Yeah. we're just here to count them. I need to get you a shirt, and that way it's just like a big clump of zebra mussels that won't look like anything other than like a clump of whatever. Then just say, I'm just here to count them.
Just here to count them.
That's all I'm here to do. Just don't talk to me. Don't shoot me. I'm just here to count them.
Yep. So it's, you know, there's definitely two different sides of the fence on this one, and people are very divided on it.
And I think, like you mentioned, because of the clear water that everybody, you know, thinks clear equals clean, that I think that's why there's such a divide in Texas. I mean, there's any environmental issue, there's going to be a divide, you know, but I think this one is so apparent that people do not, like, some people just do not care because they're like, oh yeah, the water's clear, it's clean, it's better. No, it's really not, though.
No, yeah, and it's literally a food chain, you know, scenario. And I mean, all those little phytoplankton in there that are making your water a little green is actually great nutrients for a little bit bigger up the food chain. And then you get into your rotifers and stuff like that, and along come your filter feeder shad, and things of that nature. And yeah, but if zebra mussels, like they can, I mean, again, no expert, professional, but no expert here. But, you know, I've been told, I didn't actually count the gallon of water, but one zebra mussel, an adult zebra mussel, can filter a gallon of water a day.
Oh, wow.
So
and for how tiny that is, that's a lot.
If you have millions of them every day, this becomes kind of like, wow. And I've also, you know, read, I consider them credible sources, that zebra mussels will selectively feed on certain like phytoplankton and not on your cyanobacterias that have like poisonous toxins.
I was gonna say the ones that we would love for them to eat. They're like, no, thank you.
If they can even do that ecosystem service, and it's like, well, you're, you know,
you might be invasive, but you're useful a little bit. Yeah, no, they're not useful at all right now at this point. I mean, they're invasive. Like, is there any benefit besides the clear water, which is again not clean, but is there any benefit for them to be here? I mean, they're invasive for a reason, but still.
I've heard anecdotal evidence that you can eat them, but
that'd be such a waste of time.
Tiny.
Yeah, it'd be such. I don't want to work that hard for my food. Like that would be too much work. That's like that's why like I've known people. I don't, because I laugh at them, but I know people that eat bluegills, and I'm like, that is such. To me, that is a waste of time because there's too little fish meat on too many. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. The fish that I get mad about that people eat. But anyway, because I don't want to work for my food. That's it. When I get hungry, I'm hungry. Interesting. So, do you know, like, out of all the lakes in Texas right now, do you know, like, a guesstimate percentage of how many that we know have zebra mussels in them?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I would totally be guessing here. Like, I'd love to do a count on, because it's one of those things where, you know, you've got to have like kind of the right conditions and things for them. They don't. The population we have down here is a little bit more of a warmer water tolerant, which is great for Texas, but you kind of get towards your more northern, more western stuff, and you don't see as many.
So they're the same species though. Like, have we looked at that genetically? Like, are we like they're the same?
Yes.
Because it is a significant temperature difference from one to the other.
Yeah, we do what's called eDNA, the environmental DNA tracking, and it's been thrown out there that they may be in the middle of like kind of
a transition of some sort.
Making like a different species.
It's significantly warmer water down here than up north.
Yeah, you could maybe say,
Lakes.
say subspecies.
Yeah.
But yes, they are, compared to what the Great Lakes are and those types, these down here are definitely way more like heat tolerant.
Yeah.
Which does not bode well for Texas.
Yeah, right? So it doesn't matter if the water's moving. You said, right?
And that runs into one of my hypotheses on this.
Okay.
Is I think while they're in a larval form, that they can get wiped out by UV rays fairly easy. So if you're looking at maybe a
shallow,
clear stream, then the UV rays are going to penetrate and just wipe them out. Just about like, anything else in the water column.
Yeah.
But I do know that you've got like your lakes around DFW area that are positive, and then you go way further south down to Lake Livingston that's on the same Trinity River system, and we haven't found them down that way.
Interesting.
So they do not survive that far.
Okay, all right, so we know that they're around, but then you still said that there's still random areas that haven't been hit. How do you know, like, do you guys go out and just do random surveys of these lakes to be like, to see whenever they do hit a lake? Like, how do you know when they've moved?
If only. So that, yeah.
Again, the teeny tiniest GPS trackers would be really convenient right now.
Well, if Santa Claus would start answering some of my wish list here, it would definitely be for us to have more funding to go to these non-detect lakes and like just start looking at the environmental DNA, trying to see
if there's something else going on.
When do they show up? When will they show up?
Yeah.
And I know there are other like state agencies that also, track zebra mussel populations as well.
So it's more, though, a matter of when, not if, we think, for the most part?
Yes.
Okay.
It seems inevitable.
Yeah.
We don't know why some lakes are able to hold off as long as they do.
Yeah.
But, yeah, to this day, there's some that should have no reason why they're not infested.
Yeah.
And, there are some lakes that it's like, how are you like holding on? It's like we thought this was a backwater little lake, and it's like, dude, this thing has zebra mussels. I've seen ponds and stuff where you could only really launch a kayak.
Yeah.
And zebra mussels.
Oh wow.
So it's,
which goes back to the possibility of like birds or something else moving them, that they would get into these tiny little areas. Yeah.
It's plausible.
Yeah.
Nobody's funded any research to actually, get the smoking gun on that. But man, that'd be a pretty cool research.
No, it would be. Yeah, that would be really neat. Okay, so then going back to then, how do you guys know whenever, is it just, you said there are multiple different agencies that are looking at this as well.
Yeah, so
is there like a zebra alert hotline that you guys just like, somebody sees one and you guys are like, oh my God, alert the masses?
Yeah, no, I mean, if somebody does find what they think is a zebra mussel, absolutely take a picture and then put it on iNaturalist. I mean,
I would freaking never, I'd be like, what the heck is, I would just assume it belongs there. Because it just looks like it belongs. You know what I mean? Like, it just looks like it belongs there.
Oh,
so I wouldn't know. I'd be like, nah.
It's one of those ones where it will not look like any other kind of mussel that you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
It's just such a unique shape.
It is, it is a little bit of a different shape.
Yep.
But I still don't know if I would be like, I would just assume that I didn't know about it. Not that it was an invasive, be like, oh, a species I didn't know about. Look at
this cute little fella here.
Yeah. So do you guys pretty much rely then on either citizen reporting or these other agencies just coming across it?
So what we rely on is our own field data.
Okay.
And then we pass that on to others, which mainly is Texas Parks and Wildlife. So we're kind of like a very glorified citizen science maybe, with it not being,
which is so funny because if only we could say where you worked, you just called it a glorified citizen science place. I get what you're saying, though, but it is a funny comparison. Because you guys do, the boots on the ground science compared to most organizations.
We are definitely hired to, be out there doing this.
We're definitely degree-holding professionals here.
For real. But what we do is, taking it a few steps further, whereas the citizen scientist would take a picture and send this to their local game warden and say, hey, I think this is a zebra mussel. What do you think? Whereas we're trained, we know what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And we also have the funding to do your eDNA research to where it's we got a positive hit, came back from the lab.
Yeah.
We have a positive hit here. And then that's when that would trigger us to do a little more in-depth research into this water body, maybe put out passive samplers or come out and do toe nets, not with our toes.
Yeah.
And
TOW, once again, toe nets.
Try to look for a reproducing population at that point. And then other agencies like your state agencies such as TPWD would come out there and literally flip rocks, look at hard substrate, and try to find that. But that's literally the smoking gun for these suckers is it attached to something hard?
Yeah.
All your other mussels are going to be in the mud. Mm-hmm. So that's literally their one defining
characteristic. So if it's attached to your boat,
right,
there's cause for concern.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's safe to say, if you see any sort of mussel looking thing attached to your boat, you're like, this is not good.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go back then to what is it, Texas Park and Wildlife say, the dry, what is it?
Clean, drain, and dry.
Okay. Walk us through what that is supposed to look like. Because it's not like you're just hauling your boat out of water and right there just washing everything. You know what I mean? You want to keep it contained in that lake, right?
Yeah, and that exact scenario would be what New Mexico does.
Okay.
They have a system where when you pull your boat out of the water, they've got cleaning stations right there at boat ramps and stuff. And then they'll tag your boat to where you can't undo.
Yeah.
If you launch your boat again, it's going to break the tag. And they'll know it's a dirty boat. I'm doing rabbit ears over here.
That dirty boat over there. Oh my gosh, that guy's got a dirty boat. That's a horrible walk of shame, though, too. Maybe the general population wouldn't know, but as a biologist out there, be like, oh, guy's got a dirty boat.
Oh, for real. Yeah, and If only we could get that here in Texas, I think that would.
Is it working out like that? Do they think it's working out there?
Anecdotally, yes.
Okay.
It's going leaps and bounds to kind of abate the spread really well. And for Texas, the clean, drain, dry would be to say take a power washer and pull your boat out of the lake. Open up your bilge.
And right there, though. As close as you can to the lake.
Yeah,
so that
right
way it
there
doesn't go anywhere.
On the boat ramp while you're there to where the water kind of drains out the back. Pull your bilge plug out. Go ahead and pull the lower boat plug out. Open your live wells that you kept any water in for fishing. And just get all the water that you can out. And then go take it somewhere. If you plan on going to another lake, just go hit it up with a power washer all around it. All the the bunks and stuff that hold the boat, up on the trailer and everything. Just give it a good wash down.
But it's not even just boats; it's kayaks and anything else.
Yes, and that's you can get kayaks that'll get a little water in them. Now the sit on top kind, maybe not so much, but definitely if it's gonna stay kind of moist and you want to go to another lake, make sure to at
rinse
the end
it
of it, dry it out, wash it out somewhere that it's not going to get into. Don't go do this right at your storm drain, and then it just drains off into your sewer. Yeah, because they'll just start growing there.
Yeah,
but kind of go to a location that can handle this kind of stuff, and soapy hot water is going to be your best bet.
So, you just said something that was interesting too about going into the storm drain. So, do you guys though only look at them within the lakes?
Right.
Okay. Because I was going to ask if you've ever seen one that's been like a population that's been growing in like a really weird place. And you're just like, that should not be here.
No, and that luckily no.
Yeah.
But also I don't go crawling through sewers.
Yeah,
like,
right.
On
I'll let you know if any of our
daily
guys
basis.
see any. That would be fun. Oh my gosh. If only you knew our field guys, and it's like seeing me being like walking in one day and be like, all right, I'm going to educate you guys on zebra mussels. Their faces would just be like, what are you talking about? But that would actually, I mean, that would be interesting, but.
Yeah, gosh, to actually find one that's something like that.
Yeah.
Oof, that'd be interesting. Because they really don't need sunshine. They just need a food source.
Have you guys found them in the Trinity River?
No, not in the river.
Okay.
And it's, I
mean, it is
wonder,
fairly shallow. Like through DFW Metroplex, it's shallow.
It is, and it's fairly sandy as well. So they just can't hang on to the sand.
There's nothing there,
Yeah, there's nothing really for them to hang on to. I know they'll hang on to driftwood and stuff.
Just drifting down the Trinity, just calling a zebra. Yeah, right. Yeah, because I imagine, oh god, and then I imagine like they're all like these little sailors on a little boat. They're all down there. They all with different little jobs. They're just going down the nasty Trinity, which is better. I mean, it's better in parts, but it can get pretty gross in other parts of it.
Yeah. There's signs up everywhere that say don't eat the fish.
Yeah.
That you catch in this river.
Yeah.
And it is a very
good reason not to. Yeah.
Rule to follow.
Yeah.
But
you guys haven't really been seeing them in the Trinity because it is, like we said, it is shallow.
Yeah, I really think it's a combination of not much to hold on to.
Yeah.
And then there's just like the UV factor where it's such a churned up, moving body. Now, it is fairly turbid.
Yeah.
So, the photic zone is going to be pretty much attenuated to, I couldn't see the photic zone in the Trinity River being more than 4 feet.
Yeah, if that. I was just going to say, if that. Yeah.
I mean, at the very far extent.
Yeah. All right. Do you have your closing zebra mussels? Do you have a zebra mussel joke? I wish you did.
Oh, man. So I guess the closest thing we have
children listening to this, Jeff.
The closest thing I could say that we've had to a zebra mussel joke is getting stickers made up.
Okay. Oh, I'm so excited.
Of literally like a zebra mussel, the invasive species one.
Yeah.
With like arms coming out that are just flexing. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger style. Yeah. And getting stickers like that and kind of putting them out with our scientific stuff and
putting this little flexing muscle among all the scientific data. It's fine.
But I'd say that's about as close as we can come to that.
Bunch of scientists. We're either really funny or have nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it's either ridiculous level or just absolutely nothing. There is no in between.
There's no middle ground on it, for sure.
So what are your last parting words then for if they had to walk away from this episode remembering one thing about zebra mussels, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. I would say that, think of it like this. They are zebra mussels. They have feelings too. So you can get in
little boats.
You can get into the ethical side of this where they didn't ask to be in these waters as well.
Yeah.
But
they just got brought over here against their tiny little wills.
Yeah. So don't hate them for being there.
Yeah.
But acknowledge
they shouldn't be there.
That they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So give them the stink eye a little bit.
A little bit. At least a little bit one. Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you for coming on and talking everything zebra mussel. If you guys want to check us out, reach out to us on Twitter and then on Patreon too, and help support us so we can keep bringing guests on, and we will talk to you guys next week. Thank you.
Well, not next week, because we are going to be taking our mid-season break, but we will be talking to you again soon, and don't worry, as promised, we are going to continue to have content even during our season break, and you aren't going to want to miss this. We'll see you all at Season 8.